We are back with another episode of Inside the Hive on the Hornets on SI network. Today's show, we're going to be covering a quick hit. There is a new Hornet on the team. Isaiah Wong has been signed to a two-way contract. We're going to be talking a little bit about Charles Lee's first 20 games in charge and what we've made of it so far. And then talking about some breakout players. Maybe not breaking out for forcing their way into rotation, but by necessity due to, what a shock, more injuries. So that's everything we're going to cover on today's show. Joining me, as he does every week, Sam Dracula. Sam, how are you surviving the snow in Charlotte?
Snowmageddon? Hey, we're getting by. You
got supplies, you got toilet roll, you're going to make it
got
through.
The bread, got the milk. Everybody hopefully is staying in place. It's refreshing seeing snow. I grew up in the Midwest, so even a little bit of snow reminds me a little bit of home. But that's about all I'm willing to really tolerate because I don't live there for a reason. I want to get away from that stuff. So hopefully that's the end of it. It's been 2 years since we last saw snow in Charlotte, and hope for another 2 years. I would love another break.
Yeah. Well, like we say, we've got a packed show today. Before we jump into our meatier segments, let's start with a little bit of roster transaction news, right? Everyone's been saying the Hornets need to go out and sign someone, and they've done that. They've signed Isaiah Wong out of the G League, who's playing for the Salt Lake City Stars, the Utah Jazz G League team. Just coming off a G League Player of the Week award, I believe. And they've waived Jared Rhoden, who had signed, I think they claimed him off waivers, actually, after he got waived by the Pistons. He was more of a kind of a 3-4. Isaiah Wong is more of a guard. Plays kind of like a scoring, I'd say like probably like a similar Trey Mann style to this year, like a more of a scoring one, could play some two. But I guess this is obviously a sign of concern about the long-term health of LaMelo Ball and Trey Mann, who are both currently sidelined for 2 weeks with a left calf strain for Ball and a herniated disc irritation, I believe, for Mann. Look, I'm not expecting you to have watched a lot of Isaiah Wong over this. I guess, have you watched any? Do you know who Isaiah Wong is? Is it someone you come across when you did your draft research a year ago?
Absolutely not. I have no idea who this man is. I'm gonna keep it 100%, like 100 with you. I have no idea who this guy is. Enlighten me.
So Isaiah Wong played University of Miami, and I would say he was one of the best, like, pure scorers. Like, doesn't need a screen. Like, just give him the ball, and he can go to work, like slithering to the rim. Really dangerous step back, either in the mid range or from three, and that's just kind of translated to the G League as well. He actually got drafted, I believe, by, I want to say it was the Pacers last year at 55th overall, but didn't get kept on at all throughout the season. But he's had a really good start to the G League this year. Look, they needed backcourt depth, they felt. I will say, like, he is very much a Nick Smith Jr. copycat, like, in terms of not a defender, not a creator, but give the man the ball and he can probably score, like, relatively unassisted. I don't quite know how this, like, what does this mean for Nick Smith Jr.? I think that's my big question with the signing, because they kind of fill a lot of the same role.
I will say, if a two-way guy is taking minutes away from Nick Smith Jr., that is a major red flag.
Alarm bells. Yep.
On Nick Smith Jr. And would be very disappointing for everybody involved, except for Wong. He'll be thrilled with it. But for everybody else, it's like, oh, what's going on here? What's Nick doing in practice to lose time to a two-way guy who just got here?
Yeah. And it could happen. I'm interested to see how they play it out. I wonder if they see Wong more of a point guard. Then they clearly don't see Nick Smith that way. He didn't play it last year under Steve Clifford. He's not played it this year either. He didn't even play it in Summer League, if you remember. They had Xavier Simpson as the point guard, and Nick Smith Jr. was playing more off ball. So, like, Wong is not a super high creative player. He is still, like, very much a pull-up scorer. But maybe they just feel that he can handle the ball better. He definitely has, like, I would say, like, a better handle under pressure than Smith Jr. So, look, certainly interested. An older player, Wong, I think he's 23 years old now, so he's got 3 years more experience than Nick Smith. So you'd expect that to be a little bit behind there, but interested to see if he gets into the rotation here over the next couple of weeks. Was going to be probably fighting with KJ Simpson, Nick Smith Jr. for those minutes, and we'll be interested to see if he can make an impression there.
Yeah, best of luck to him. More help the better, especially during these trying times here in Charlotte. But yeah, like Rhoden wasn't getting that much play, and that's probably why I got cut and replaced. So maybe at least there's an upgrade there potentially in that roster spot.
It feels like it was more positional. Like Rhoden is more of a 3-4, and obviously I think they've got Bridges coming back relatively soon. They've obviously lost Grant Williams, but you've got Salon, Martin, like even Seth Curry can play a little bit there. I think they have more options they feel better about at his position. Yeah. And I think ultimately that's why they decided to go. You've obviously got Josh Green as well. You can play some of those positions. So yeah, Daquan Jeffries apparently might be coming back soon. He's questionable, as is Mark Williams for tonight's game. We're recording this on Tuesday morning. So, look, by the time we heard this, we might even have Daquan Jeffries and Mark Williams back. Hornets might be getting healthier just after. We might have reached the peak downturn. You know, we might have reached the bottom, which was that last game against, I've got who they're playing. They played the Hawks. Is that right?
Yeah, they last played the Hawks. And then just before that, yeah.
Yeah, so that might be the bottom of the injury pain. Let's hope. We've said that many times before.
Yeah. Always the concern is that you gain somebody, then you end up losing somebody shortly after. Hopefully they can, maybe we get the double debut of Daquan and Mark Williams at the same time, really.
Yeah.
Help shift things in a good direction.
Yeah. All right, well, let's move on here onto our main feature. Let's talk a little bit about Charles Lee. And we're going to talk about some breakout players later, some of the players that we've not seen as much of until recently due to injuries. But before we do that, Charles Lee is 20 games in. His debut season as head coach. The team is 6-14. I've just written a big feature that's going to be coming out on Wednesday on Hornets on SI, kind of like grading different areas and then kind of giving him an overall grade. I'm curious to hear what are your overall thoughts of Charles Lee so far.
I think overall, thumbs up. Like overall, solid thumbs up. It is encouraging seeing him communicate with these guys and him holding them accountable for when they are not listening or executing. For me, this season, the word of the season for me is learning. And that's the individual guys. And it's also the evaluators learning what they got here. And it also includes Charles Lee learning on the job as his first head coach, as his first time being a head coach. And so.
And by the way, no matter how ready someone is to be a head coach for the first time or how they say they're ready, I can 100% promise you that they will be learning a lot in their first year as head coach. It doesn't matter if you're 50 years old, you're doing it, or you're a young guy like Charles Lee, he will be learning as he goes along. And I'm almost certain that he will do things differently year two. We won't hear about them. We won't see about those things, but there will be things that he'll be picking up as we go along here. So for me, this is always the baseline. He will only get better grasp of things from here out forward.
And I agree. And when you look at the situations he came from, he learned in that environment in Milwaukee and Boston, at the time, top tier, premier situations. He's not going to he didn't counter what he's experiencing now with losing all these guys and this type of roster there. So learning this situation, how to adapt, how to get the most out of a guy who is stepping up in replacement of another guy, especially when they've been benched previously, when they had their chance, that's all pretty new to him. And I think largely it's gone very well. So for me, Charles Lee thus far, a solid thumbs up.
Yeah, I agree overall. I think I don't want to review my overall grade just yet. You can read the piece on when Hornets and a cipher about that. But I kind of looked at different areas, and I thought it'd be good if we can look into these in a little bit more detail. I guess firstly, in terms of the style of the team, right? What is the identity of the Charlotte Hornets? Do the Charlotte Hornets have an identity? And I think they do, especially offensively. They are fourth in the league in offensive rebounding, and they're second in 3-point volume, right? And I think you would say that really plays to their strengths as a roster, like LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller, both of them excellent 3-point shooters. And I think you look at the rebounding side. I mean, we've not even had Mark Williams yet, but when everyone is healthy, like Mark Williams, Nick Richards, Cody Martin, Josh Green, Tijon Salon, Musa Diabate, there are some excellent offensive rebounders in this team. So those have been areas of focus, and they've come through. And like, this is a big thing, right? Has he been able to get buy-in from the team to deliver his vision? I think we have seen that. Look, the record isn't great, 6-14. Some people point straight to that and go, why is this thumbs up? This is just what we saw last year with Steve Clifford. And like ever, there is important context. I think one big thing to look at here is like the point differential. So last year, the Hornets' average point margin for a game was minus 10.8.
Yeah.
This year is minus 5.1, so under half. So even though the record is still subpar, like, everyone's felt it if you've watched these games. They're in all these games that you feel they don't really have any right to be in when you just look at the talent on both sides. And for me, getting less talented players to play up at a level that they're able to just like go toe to toe with more talented teams, you only can do that through cohesive, connected coaching and getting people to work hard and do the little things, because you're not just going to outskill opponents. And we've seen that, and I think that's been really encouraging, and that's something Steve Clifford failed to really get in these last 2 years.
Yeah, man, to your point, the Hornets have no business, the last 2 games especially, covering. And with them, it took a Mitric's garbage time layup to do it in the last game. But against New York, especially, like a team that was at a lot of people's favorite to win the East or be in the Eastern Conference Finals, to be in that game, to hold that team to 15 points in the first quarter. Like, there are segments of the season where you're like, what's happening here? And like the shooting, you know, when it's good, it's great, and it's bailing them out. Like Brandon Miller, his performances last few games have really lifted up. But to your point about guys stepping up and that emphasis on rebounding, like Musa Diabate is a madman out there on the glass. And yes, the individual, Musa deserves credit for it, but Charles Lee deserves credit for it as well, giving him that run and that confidence and the trust, you know. And I think genuinely having Nick Richards back and Diabate, that I think we're going to see what Charles Lee's made up of as a coach. Like, you have a guy, Nick Richards, who I think was having a career year up until the point he got hurt, and Diabate, who's having a career year himself. How he handles that with the Mark Williams situation. Like, I think the tests that Lee has faced thus far have been mostly passed. I know the results aren't there, but I'm just, you know, the situations, like you're faced with a choice A, choice B type thing. I think he's made the majority of good decisions, but I'm looking forward to seeing how he handles the center spot, especially as we go through this.
How would you handle it? Let's say right now, Mark Williams, Nick Richards, Diabate, all healthy, no minutes limit. How would you handle that situation?
I would trade one of them boys. That's what I would do. But that's not an option. We're not.
Put them in order. Who are you trading from? The one that you trade first to last.
Okay, so
I know we've not prepped for this. I'm putting you on the spot now. You say you're going to trade him. You have to give people the details.
I would trade Nick Richards.
Okay.
And then run as hopefully, and then assume. Okay, I would trade Nick Richards, get 2 2s or whatever, a protected one, whatever the price is. Anything of value is value, because you just you add it with all the other stuff. It may not be a sexy trade, but in addition to the collection of second round picks they already have, it's something. And then, you know, you're banking on Mark Williams staying healthy and Diabate continuing his run. You can also then convert Diabate to a full-time deal once you create that roster spot, moving on from Nick Richards. If there's a market for Mark Williams, I would explore that too. I want to be very clear on that, because I don't know about him, but because he hasn't played enough basketball. He's been gone for
Well,
a
that's
year.
the thing. You're not getting anything of value for Mark Williams because he's not played basketball in, I believe, 360 days.
Yeah.
And he's not been able to stay on the court. So I don't think you're ever going to get something of that equal, what you view as equal value for someone who could be like a starting center. You're not getting starting center value back. You're getting like, oh, he's a flyer. He'd be interesting. It'd be like when James Wiseman got traded from the Warriors for 4 second-round picks. Yeah. It would be something like that. And I just don't think there's any upside to do that right now, personally. I think you've ridden through the hard times of the injuries. You now have to wait and hope that there's some upside on the other side of it, just like there was with LaMelo Ball when he came back from his injuries and is able to have a good start to the season this year. I think you're in that point now of well, there's no point having those trade talks with Mark Williams. But that's my view.
And especially because you have one more year on his rookie deal. You don't have to make a decision yet. When it's time to decide whether or not you're going to pay him, that is all right, we can explore that. But as the coach, assuming no trades, I'm starting Mark Williams. Nick Richards is the second string center, and then Diabate will be on the bench or in Greensboro. For me, the beauty of it is, and why it's such, I think, a pretty an enviable position for Charles Lee is if Mark's not giving you what you want, hey man, we got Musa to take your spot. We got Nick Richards to take. There's a real competition there that I think will bring the most out of everybody. That I think is a coach's dream, to have options and expectations and different things to leverage when you have other players that can play the same spot. So yeah, it's good. I'm really excited to see what that looks like for a variety of reasons.
Can I try and sell something to you, and you let me know if you're buying?
All right, hit me.
Mark Williams plays the 5. We explore the 3-point shooting ability of Mark Williams. Musa Diabate plays some 4 because he can guard more on the perimeter. And you essentially play Mark Williams a 4 on offense as a spacer. And you have Musa Diabate allowed to just roam and attack the offensive rebounding glass. It's unconventional. Yeah. I get it, but it could be. People want to see the 3-point shooting Mark Williams, and if they really want to lean into him doing that, it could be a way that you can shoehorn those 3 guys onto the floor, at least to share minutes at some point. I don't know if I believe it myself, but are you selling or are you buying that idea?
I'll buy it. Why not? Why not? It ain't gonna hurt anything. And again, it's learning, and see, I'm all for throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks, especially in a season where you don't have those top tier expectations. Yeah. So at this stage, I'm more than okay with them getting creative in the front court.
Okay. Weaknesses of Charles Lee's system. Currently, they are ranked 25th in offense. So despite the offensive rebounding and 3-point rate being high, they've struggled to create enough scoring opportunities. And the headline here is the free throw attempt rate. Sam, they are obviously 30th in free throw attempts, but the difference between 30th and the next team, which is 29th, which is 1.3 free throw attempt rate, is the same between 29th and the 23rd team. So what that's saying is the Hornets are 30th by a mile. They just cannot get to the free throw line at all. Free throw line is the most efficient shot in the game. Again, you look at their 2 high usage players in Brandon Miller and LaMelo Ball. There's a reason for that. Neither of them are natural guys who have a huge physical advantage and draw a lot of fouls, attacking the basket. Some people will be listening to this saying the Hornets get the worst whistle in the league. Fine, you can believe that if you want. I get it. But I'm telling you, they're just not guys whose games lend themselves to drawing a lot of free throw attempts. And I think it will help getting Nick Richards and Mark Williams back. Grabbing guys, grabbing offensive rebounds, having more size on the inside, where you can attack mismatches. I think that will help. But I also do think just being 30th in free throw attempt rate, you are completely reliant on how well you shoot it that night. And we know there's variance in that. And in 82 games, if you're going to be completely reliant on your jump shot variance, even those best Warriors teams, etc., they got to the free throw line a lot. They shot a lot of threes, but they also got fouled a lot. and the Hornets have not found a way to do that. And then they're also 26th in turnovers, which again is going to make it really difficult if you're losing possession battle a lot with your turnovers, and 25th in pace, which this team should not be 25th in pace. Like, look at the players in this line, like LaMelo Ball, Josh Green, Brandon Miller. Like, these are good transition players. Miles Bridges, even Mark Williams, Nick Richards, when they play, are like pretty good transition running centers. For me, like, that's the biggest thing that I look at that and go, 25th in pace. That should be for like the Milwaukee Bucks, who like this veteran team, not for the Charlotte Hornets. And that is one where I think you can point to say that Charles Lee has to do a better job of getting these guys to play at a faster pace.
Yeah, I mean, I would love for them to emphasize getting to the free throw line more. Like, it's a cheat code. Like, it's what all the serious teams can do, because when the shot's not there, those are easy points, and it controls the pace of the flow of the game, the tempo of the game. And it also puts the other team in a bad position. Like, there's so many positives about getting to the line that the Hornets are missing out on completely. And to your point, getting the big bodies back will certainly help. And especially because Charlotte finally has centers that can shoot from the free throw line. And so when they're back, but Nick is like 60% career, Mark is 70% career, something like that. No, Mark is 73% career. So like, Nick's 73% and Mark is 70%. So yeah, getting those guys back, getting those extra 6 points, that's a massive difference in the grand scheme of things. And I think you're right. That's a serious miss from this setup or mentality or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, and for all the love, Diabate's been great. But I mean, like I say, he has airballed multiple free throws, I think, this year. And that's why when he gets defensive rebound, he doesn't even look up at the basket most of the time. He is looking to kick out instantly. And that's actually worked pretty well. Like, they've been able to kick out and find shooters, and that's been good. But yeah, being able to draw fouls, put stress onto the team, that's something that they need to do. Defensively, in terms of identity, the Hornets currently give up the 30th ranked opponent shot profile, right? Let me translate that. What that means is they give up a bunch of attempts at the rim, they give up a bunch of corner threes, and they don't give up many mid-range shots. So the other team are taking extremely efficient shots from the corners, from the rim, and at the free throw line. And the Hornets haven't been able to force teams into taking shots that they don't want to take. And that's, again, something that long-term, if you're looking at how can this defense improve, the shots that they give up, that's one of the biggest areas that they need to work on, because other teams are getting to exactly what they want to get to, which is, leading to, even though there has been like the last 3-4 games, the defense has been better, I think partly because of the personnel playing in those games and those who haven't been playing. But over the course of the season, that has been a problem.
Yeah, because then you're just at the mercy of the shot being there for the other team.
Yeah,
right.
And the centers being missing has been part of that, right? Like the rim stuff, especially, like that's been part of the reason. And you could even say the 3-point shooting, because those centers haven't been there. The shot blockers, guys have had to kind of like play a little bit further off the perimeter players to kind of give themselves a cushion, because they know there isn't a Nick Richards or Mark Williams behind them to protect the rim. So you could say all these things are interlinked, but these are things that when we look like the next quarter of the season, you'd hope to see improvement there. And if you don't, again, that's another red flag.
Yeah, for a while there, without the centers, Cody Martin was like leading the team in blocks for a while there. It's pretty dire. It's pretty bad, but it's getting better. So we'll see how that improves.
Yeah. Another section, rotations, generally with Charles Lee. I mean, for me, this is just like a TBC, because there's not been a moment yet, as you said earlier, it's like he's not really had to make difficult decisions of who doesn't play or, here or there. Like, it's just been whoever's available is basically playing tonight. Yeah. The only thing you could probably point to here around rotations is the benching of LaMelo Ball at one point. We've already touched on that, so I don't think we need to go into too much detail. But is there anything rotation wise? I mean, obviously there was the time he started Salon, after Miles Bridges got injured, and then he kind of backtracked and started Grant Williams. So he won't say it, but he kind of said that wasn't working as well as I wanted. He cycled through backup point guard options with Micic, Mann, Martin, Simpson, like trying to find something from that group of which is the best way for them to play. So I think he's been searching a little bit, but that's to be expected with a guy coaching the team for the first time with a lot of young players. Have you any thoughts on rotations? Any gripes? Anything that you particularly like?
I mean, not so. My couple things were Josh Green related. I think Cody Martin outplayed Josh Green early on.
Yep.
And I think Cody deserved more run, like and even starting over Josh.
Yeah,
but with the way Josh Green's been playing, it's like I'm cool with Josh Green getting more run than Cody right now. So it just kind of ebbs and flows. But what I love is that Charles Lee, like as the kids say, stands on business, right? LaMelo's not giving you what you want, he sits. Miles Bridges not giving you what you want, he sits. Vasilicic, he sits. Like he's holding these guys accountable, and I respect that, and I think it's going to pay off in a good way.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's done, like I say, I think it's different. It'll be interesting when it starts to get more difficult for him.
Yeah.
All right. When you start to, I mean, like everyone as this roster has basically played at some point. Like they've either been injured or they've been playing. So it'll be interesting to see how it develops out. The positive nature of Charles Lee. I mean, you'll be like me. You watch all the interviews, you hear him speak. Do you think at any point his like incredibly positive mantra will it remain the whole season? One, and will it great? Like if I have like some coach coming in telling you every day how like, oh, this injury's great, it's just another opportunity for us. It's fantastic. And it's like game 70, I'm on a 4-game road trip, and I'm going like, just like, come on, man, like we can stop the BS now. Do you think it, or do you think like it will just remain like he is at all times? I'm curious. Like he's so positive all the time, and it just interests me.
I don't know. Part of me hopes he's like that for the public, and then in the locker room just cursing these guys out. Like I hope.
Yeah, that's definitely a possibility. I will say, like that is, I think he definitely has a way with the media.
Mm-hmm. And him. I'd be sad, low key, if the Charlotte Hornets like corrupted his positive attitude. Like if we get to February and he's like a old grumpy man, could be kind of a bummer. I'll be honest with you. And I feel what you're saying about the potential like grading nature of the positivity, but it'd be also kind of sad. Like, oh look what we did to Charles Lee. If he's like just turns into some grumpy old man, like get off my lawn type shit, and just like I hope that stays to some degree, but obviously balance is where you want to be.
Yeah. I wonder if he'll ever like call someone out post game, call out his own team in the Steve Clifford ethos. I don't think he will. I don't think that's the style. I don't think that's what he believes in. But like you say, I do think, and it's a great observation, I do think fans should not always take what they hear in the media and think that's what he actually thinks. It's a little bit like with the LaMelo benching situation when he was just like, oh, I just thought Trey Mann was playing great tonight and he had the hot hand. And people being like, what the hell? Like, it wasn't really just about Trey Mann having a hot hand. He did, and he was playing well, but like Charles Lee's giving an answer there to avoid any more media inquiry. Like if he starts saying like, yeah, I needed to send a message, but that's just going to invite more criticism. It's going to be on ESPN. It's going to be more talking heads. All he's trying to do is play that down here. And, he's grown up in this media age where he sees like what people say and how things can get twisted. So I think he's very smart operating with the media, and I do expect that will go. But I think just generally like the positive vibes I see everywhere, even from wearing LaMelo's like player gear, his brand. He turned up to like some of the fundraisers for Thanksgiving for some of the players that they ran.
Yeah.
Like
he's traveling, for summer league to the national team camp, like all that
Went
stuff
to
is
Vegas to see Brandon. This is like, it's a way of building up like equity with your
great.
players in the positive moments, so that when those difficult moments come, you have to talk about someone about, I don't know, not being in the rotation, needing to improve certain areas. You've got a stronger foundation to work from. You've got a foundation of trust, of honesty, and you're not already on a rocky relationship, and then you're trying to then have a difficult conversation on top of that where it'll go well. And I think that's extremely wise. So I love that he's doing that.
And this may be a stretch, so forgive me, but I feel like if Clifford was the coach now, all the circumstances the same, we would see this team quit more. Because they quit at times last 2 seasons, and they haven't quit at all this year. They have every reason in the world this season, with all the key guys being out, to just roll over and die, and they have it. Not even a little bit. And I that's not nothing. I don't know how much to.
It isn't. I will say it's easier to not quit in game 20 than it is in game 70. Sure. Right. When the season is longer, you're tired, you've got an eye on the off season, you know there's nothing left to play for yet. Like, you don't often see teams quitting at the 20 game mark. But I do take what you mean. Like we talked about the point differential earlier, like they've been able to play more competitive. And I think part of it's just like some of the players are better. Like Steve Clifford said it multiple times last year. He was like, effort isn't the problem. It's our like ability to execute on our talent. And I do think when you're bringing in like Seth Curry as like one of the final guys off the bench, like that is better than when you were bringing in like Kai Jones, James Bucknight, Bryce McGowan's, JT Thor. Like none of those guys are sniffing an NBA rotation right now. When their team's healthy, a lot of them are playing in the G League, and like sometimes when you play badly, it can look like poor effort. When you're turning the ball over, when shots aren't going in, when you're making mistakes in defensive coverage, and sometimes it's not effort; it's just you're not very good. And I think I do think this team is deeper. Like with the likes of Taj Gibbs and Seth Curry, that they might not do things well, but they know what they should be doing and what they shouldn't be doing. And I do think that makes like an optic difference.
Oh yeah, and there's a hunger too, right? Where the guys who are getting run that might not have, like, Trey Mann in this new experience, right? Or Diabate, or like KJ Simpson more recently. Like these guys are getting run, and they want to make the most of it when their McGowans of the world really didn't when they had the opportunity. Or Booknight, for instance, who had every opportunity with all the injuries during that run, during his time in Charlotte. That backcourt was punished with injuries, and Booknight still couldn't find his way into the rotation.
He was given ample opportunity. Steve Clifford started him, didn't he? Or like played him in the rotation for the start of all of last season.
Mm-hmm. And like Borrego gave him like, I swear he had like we'll get like 7 games and then nothing, and then 7, like just he'll make these random appearances, not really capitalize on it and disappear. Where maybe if you had built a time machine to put like KJ Simpson, for instance, in that same situation, that would look very differently for KJ than it did for Booknight, because KJ's looking to make the most out of his opportunity where Booknight really didn't.
Yeah. Last thing I want to talk about, Charles Lee, player development. I think you could arguably look at Diabate, Trey Mann, Cody Martin, Brandon Miller, LaMelo Ball, and say all having career years. Now, some of that I think you could loosely link to Charles Lee. Some of that is just natural, probably development. And Charles Lee really only got here in the summer. Like he was with the Celtics in the championship. So I don't think you can necessarily give as much credit in this area. It's like harder to tie it exclusively, but I do think it's worth mentioning. A couple of players who I think have maybe struggled under Charles Lee so far. I think Miles Bridges to start the year was obviously the big elephant in the room. That was a real struggle, and Showed some signs of life before the injury, but that'll be an interesting one to monitor the rest of the year. Josh Green had a slow start, but has come on better recently. And Micic, which I don't know about you. Like, I just don't feel that Micic's decline has anything to do with like how he's being used. Like, for me, it's all about him. Like, just there's nothing about the system or anything like that. I just think he looks like he's really struggled for confidence and ability at times. I don't know if he's tired from busy offseason with the Olympics. I don't quite get it, but I just don't really tie Micic's struggles as much to Charles Lee as then maybe I do Miles Bridges, where Charles Lee even like admitted like a lot of the actions he's calling just don't involve Miles Bridges, and he's struggled to affect the game in other ways.
Yeah, I agree with you on Micic. I want to give him the benefit of the doubt because he's an older player and he's played a lot of basketball in his career. I know he's pretty new to the NBA, but I think he does deserve some grace in that respect. And lately, he's been playing better with the more opportunity. Like, he's finally cracked 30 minutes a game, last 2 games. And
yeah, we're gonna touch on that. We're gonna touch on that.
But to your point about it's like the success stories, I put Nick Richards in that as well.
Yes. Yeah.
He was on pace to have a career year. Like his like, and I think it really sucks he got hurt. But I looked at Nick as a guy who wasn't gonna get much better. Being a guy who is 26, I thought his kind of career trajectory was gonna flatten out. And this year, at 27 years old, he found another gear. And I want to give Nick Richards credit for that, but I also want to give Charles Lee credit for that. And it's great to see. Like, points, blocks, rebounds, just dunks, rebounds, and blocking. That's been preaching for Nick Richards. And that's what he's been really focused on. That's why he beat out Vernon Carey in the same draft class, because he was focused on the what the team needed, not overextending,
Oh God,
living in his lane.
I remember we had to watch Vernon Carey and Nick Richards play together, with both of them shooting threes in the G League and Summer League. I mean, Sam, what the fuck were we doing, man? Like, what was going through Mitch Kupchak's mind, and like the theory behind drafting 2 centers in the same draft class and like getting them to shoot threes and playing to just such bad process. Such bad process.
I blame COVID.
The last thing on player development, G League, Greensboro Swarm off to a 7-1 start, right? And we're talking about Charles Lee's start here as like, his first 20 games in charge, but really it's Charles Lee and staff, because he has brought in assistant coaches. He brought in, he'll have had a key part in the bringing in of the G League coach as well, DJ Baker, his staff as well. So I think when we start to reckon, like, the Greensboro Swarm have never, ever been 7-1. I don't think they've ever really been above 500. And they've been missing a bunch of guys. They're not at Diabate, they're not at Simpson, they're not at Nick Smith. Like, they've not had Rhoden because he's been injured. So it's not even like they've been stacked with NBA talent and have just been doing well off that. They've had a really mixed up lineup and they've been doing extraordinarily well. Shout out Reggie Perry, by the way, who they has added and has had a fantastic season for the Swarm. But yeah, that's another thing I think should be mentioned in this. Like, the likes of KJ Simpson, who's come in and done well, Nick Smith, who we're going to talk about a little bit. Like, they've got some time in Greensboro this year, and that's, I think, benefited them.
Yeah, along the same lines, I just want to mention Kemba and his seemingly like influence on LaMelo. That's not nothing. I don't know how much credit to give, like, dish out credit to folks, but it's really cool to see, if nothing else, as a fan, watching LaMelo sit down on the bench, turn to his right, and talk to Kemba Walker. That is so cool. That never gets old. I love seeing that.
Yeah. So I think overall, like, you kind of sound like me. I guess if you were to grade it between an A to a D, where are you grading Charles Lee's and staff? Charles Lee and staff. What are you grading his overall start?
So I said a solid thumbs up. I guess it would be 2 thumbs up. So that 2 thumbs up would be an A. Okay, so let's go B. I'll give it a solid B then.
Solid B.
I'll convert the conversion rate. I think a solid thumbs up is a B. So we'll go with that.
All right. Well, you'll be able to see my grade in the piece tomorrow that comes out in Hornets on SI, reviewing Charles Lee's first month there. And loads of interesting stats, quotes, and little video pieces in there. So please go ahead and read that. We're going to take a break right here for ads, and then we're going to come back and talk about some of the players that we haven't seen as much this season until the last week due to injuries. And we're going to come back right after the break. Okay. Sam, I'm going to go to you first. Who do you want to talk about? With the group of little players we have here is KJ Simpson, Nick Smith Jr., Vasa Micic, and Tijon Salon. Who do you want to talk about first?
Let's do KJ first because he will forever, like, he stole my heart in the in March Madness, man. Like, I tuned into those Colorado games to watch Cody Williams. I think like a lot of people did, and KJ Simpson and Tristan Da Silva. I was like, whoa, these boys are fire. Which one's a lottery pick? It was like really hard to tell. No shots at Cody Williams, but we know how that turned out. But and also tangent here. Are you familiar with what's going on with Colorado football and Deion Sanders and Coach Prime?
Yeah, I slight awareness. I know. Yeah, I am.
So because of that, I listen to a lot of like Colorado football podcast stuff, and the basketball team was doing so well. Like the basketball talk would creep into the Colorado football stuff, and those guys who've watched Colorado basketball closely are alums and are really about it. Like the DNVR guys, they were talking up KJ Simpson so big. Like they're like, this guy's a stud. They wanted the Nuggets to draft him. They're like, this would be the perfect backup to Jamal Murray, like the highest of praise. And so when I finally got a chance to watch him and bet on him, I was like, he did not disappoint in the tournament. And so for him to get this run now as a second round pick, who I was gassed about, by the way, I loved the fact that he was there and the Hornets were able to draft him. Through this stretch, like it's a very small sample size, 2 games.
Yeah, 2 games basically from getting rotation minutes right now.
Yeah, but man, like he's 40% from the field, 27% from 3. Not a whole lot there, but I think you can see the flashes of something special there, and I'm so thrilled with KJ Simpson. I have so much confidence in him on the ball as well. It gives me comfort knowing that he's there as the 4th option, right? When everyone's back, he's gonna fade away. He's gonna spend time in Greensboro, but knowing that guy is there to go to if things go poorly, I'm here for it.
Yeah, I think the Knicks game was obviously like I called it the KJ Simpson breakout game. He had 11 points, 2 assists, 2 steals, and a block as well. Look, this is one of those where I think looking at the box score doesn't tell you the whole story with KJ Simpson. Like you feel him out there on the court, like with his energy, his defense. I mean, there was a play where he stripped Jalen Brunson and found Tijon Salon in the corner. That is stripping Jalen Brunson. That is no mean feat. Like that is a super strong, well-crafted guard who has seen every single defense. And like for me, that was just a pretty jump out play. Look, I think the 3-point shot right now still probably isn't NBA ready, and it's not really been in the G League either when he shot it there. He's still like when you see a 6-foot guard, you think, oh, he's got to be a good shooter. And I think ironically, actually, he is better at like attacking the rim and finishing. I mean, they had a couple of dunks in that game, including one of 1 foot in the half court, which was like had me really kind of like cocking back, going, KJ Simpson, like where's that coming from? So,
when I saw that.
Yeah, he's an unconventional small guard where you just think like you kind of think he's going to be a bit like Nick Smith Jr., like lots of jump shots, like doesn't really want to go anywhere near the rim, and he's kind of the opposite. I think he knows in the system he's in, he needs to shoot the 3, and I mean he's got 11 threes in the last 2 games, which I don't think it's a massive strength of him, but I think he's trying to play the system. I think he's trying to execute and know the game plan, and if he gets an open shot, especially the way the Hornets are right now, like you just go ahead and take that, because you pass that up and pass it around, the ball might end up in Tijon Salon's hands with 5 seconds left, and you go, I wish we'd had that open KJ Simpson 3. But I've been really impressed, with the 2-way play. He's had some nice kind of like little flashes, like cutters and bigs in and around the basket. Like he doesn't get sped up when he's in amongst the trees, which I think is something that you like to see. That he's still able to see the game at a high level and make some good passes. So I mean that Knicks game was super impressive. He had some good early minutes in the Atlanta game where he had those 2 threes and went to the free throw line. But there's flashes, right? And that's what you want to see from young two-way guys getting the first opportunity. I can see a world now where, like, if Micic were to be moved at the trade deadline and Trey Mann was out, or like even maybe Trey Mann is back, that towards the end of the season, KJ Simpson is the backup point guard for this team. Like when they're playing out the last 20 games, I can see the vision for that now. And that's not always been clear with like other second round picks. When you've seen flashes, you're like, this is far, far away. And I like how he's executed when he's been out there.
No, yeah, I agree. I'm a big fan. I hate that it's under these circumstances, but I'm so excited for him that he's getting this run. And you know, anybody that cries during draft day always has a special place in my heart. I always like seeing that emotion, and he gets, it means a lot to him.
Yeah. Let's go on to the aforementioned Nick Smith Jr., another guard getting more minutes at the moment. Look, Nick Smith, obviously second year now, 20 years old, missed quite a lot of training camp and preseason with I think it was a hamstring or a groin injury. So probably rightfully like a little bit further behind some of the other players. He's finally getting some minutes after having to be patient. Probably had to be the most patient of all the kind of like fully main contract guys. What have you made of Nick Smith's play with the increased minutes recently?
I think he's still trying to find it. Which is okay. But I love what I've been seeing out of KJ because I don't have the same level of expectations I do for him as I do Nick Smith Jr. You carry around that first round pick responsibility. I think a lot comes with that, and I don't think we're seeing that yet, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, look, I want to credit Nick Smith for like very much buying into the role player mentality, because if you watch him in high school or at college, like it was the Nick Smith Jr. show. Like he had the ball a lot, he would take a lot of shots, he would do a lot of dribbling, and he's definitely tried to make that adjustment of being more of an off-ball player, moving the ball more, like giving probably like more. I would say he gives a high level of effort defensively. I don't think that's translating to good defense, which is the shame. Like he gets down in stance. I can tell he's into it. I can tell he's got competitive spirit, but he's super skinny. He doesn't have great instincts. He doesn't have great length that seems to bother. And despite playing with like the right approach, it just doesn't impact guys like you would hope to see on that side. Look, the shot is NBA level. Like the shooting is not going to be the reason Nick Smith doesn't play in an NBA rotation regularly. But he can't really pass or create for others. He throws some nice passes here and there, but like it's like for every nice pass, there's one turnover, and like they just offset each other. And that's why he's kind of been transitioned to this off-ball role. So he doesn't really create too well for others. He doesn't put any pressure on the rim, allergic to the rim. Like it's always like the floater, mid-rangey floater when he gets even close to the paint. And he's not a great defender. So all of a sudden you're talking about like a pretty narrow skill set in terms of he's got some scoring ability. He's a good shooter. But like this is the NBA, Nick. Like you need to be able to influence the game in a lot of ways when you're not, if your only bag is scoring and you're not going to have the ball in his hand a lot because he's not good enough with it. You need to find other ways to impact the game. And I'm still struggling to see that right now. It's still early. Time could come. But what we've seen so far, it looks kind of similar to like last year.
Yeah. And you have to, his position on the roster, you're not going to cater to building the best lineup around him. Right. And
no,
you need to to get the most out of him, and it's backwards. It should be the other way around. And I think last couple of games is the worst plus minus on the team, and it's not even close. And it's not. I don't think that's an accident. You have to have a specific group of guys around him, and you just don't want to be catering to a role player at this stage. I think Nick Smith has a very bright future. We're just not seeing it yet through this period, in my opinion.
Yeah, and like I said, he was a freshman, and he basically very rarely played at Arkansas because of a knee injury. So I would say he is, like most sophomore players would probably play like a couple of years in college, and like, he is still like young for his age. But like you said, at the moment he is point guard sized, but he can't play point guard. So like if you play him like next to someone like Seth Curry, then all of a sudden you've just like those backcourts just get burned. Like
oh my God.
It's like 6'2" Seth Curry and 6'1" Nick Smith Jr. And neither of them are good enough defensively. So you need to play Nick Smith next to a point guard with size who is a better defender and can attack the rim and can create. And like that's what he needs to play next to, and that's just a really like narrow skill set. Not many teams are going to have that available to play in the backcourt to perfectly complement you. So I hope it comes. I hope it comes online more. This bench does need scoring. Like I said earlier, that Isaiah Wong signing is a little concerning in my opinion because I think he fills a similar role. But remember, this was an old front office that drafted Nick Smith Jr. This was not the Jeff Peterson front office, and it wouldn't shock me if this is what it is like for the season. It would not shock me if he was off the team by the trade deadline or this summer. In fact, I would think it's more likely than not. Just because the way it works with new front offices, they just want their guys. They want people who they draft with their vision, who fit their values. And I don't know if Nick Smith quite does for this new front office.
Yeah. And he's a second-year guy. So, as an asset, it's a attractive asset. Former first-round pick with 2 more years on his rookie deal. Like, it would make sense to make the most out of it if he doesn't fit your plans.
That sounds very Wizardsy, doesn't it? Right, that like because like he's not really shown much for a playoff team, but like for a team, it's like, hey, let's just take a stab at someone who might have some upside left. Like that's the kind of thing you could do.
Yeah.
Who do you want to go next? Do you want to go Micic or do you want to go Salon?
Let's do my rookie of the year.
The way you're talking about KJ Simpson, I thought he might be your rookie of the year.
All right, listen, no, they can share the trophy. They can alternate weekends with it. Salon, the starter. It's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to enjoy it. I'll be honest with you. I really wish this wasn't a need right now, and that he was a starter based off merit and not because everyone's hurt. But the shooting is really bad. He went over the other night.
Do you believe the shot is bad though?
The shot, no. The execution is the poor thing. I think it's not. It's what's it called? Like the results aren't there. But I like his shot. I do like his shot. And
I agree. It's versatile. It's deep, super deep.
I
like the mechanics
in him when he takes the shots. Like I don't cringe like, oh no, he's shooting again. Like
yeah, I agree.
I'm here for it. Tajon, get your shots up, dog. Like I'm here for it. It's just the results haven't been there. That's my main concern with him. But I do like that he's putting them up, even through the struggles, because I think it's gonna click at some point. He strikes me as the guy that can hit 3 in a row and just get hot out of nowhere. Yeah. It's just unfortunate that like he's a guy that you're pointing to as a starter, and he's not a guy you can just turn to see if he has a hot hand. Then you can like give him the keys, a la like Kelly Oubre back in the day, where like you got it tonight, okay, cool, we'll go with you. If you don't, we'll go somewhere else. There's not really anywhere else to go in the front court at the power forward spot, so kind of stuck with it.
Yeah. Over the last 4, Salon is averaging 8 points, 5 rebounds, 1.3 assists, 1.3 steals. Hasn't recorded a block in the last 4 games. I'm still interested to see I wrote about it earlier this year. Will Salon have more blocks or charges by the end of the year? That's one we've got to keep an eye on. Field goal percent is 32% from the field, 29% from three. That's pretty horrible for an NBA player. His 3-point volume, 100th percentile for the amount of threes that he takes in his rate. Like he gets them up there. And like I said earlier, I actually think he is a good shooter, and I do believe in his 3-point shot long term.
Yeah.
I think right now, like he's 44% from the corners over the last 4 games and 21% from non-corners. So again, I wonder if there's a way Charles Lee can try and park him more in those corners and manufacture him more looks from there. That's something that could be worth looking at.
Yeah, on draft day, on his, I don't even know if it was his Twitter, just a Tajon Salon Twitter account. Like his reel was like 50% corner threes. like the first few clips were him just putting up corner threes. Like, all right, that works. We need that. So like not focusing on that seems like a miss if that's what we know is his real skill set.
And it's hard, right? Because it's also the shot that other teams want to take away, right? So, that's always the one. It's always easy to say, oh, you need to get more corner threes. Well, how do you make that, right? But on that point, like last year, I did a big deep dive. He shot 40.8% on open catch and shoot threes and 23.4% on contested threes. And then he shot 29.5% on what you call like deep shots, like what I would call like way beyond the 3-point line. Mm-hmm. So if he's open and he's around the kind of the 3-point line, then I think he's a good shooter. The problem is he takes a lot of very deep ones, and he takes some kind of like contested relocation ones, which are just more difficult for him to execute. But still, to be 6'10", to be as big as he is, to play with his energy, and to be able to have the confidence and some of the skill set, because I do think it's there to do it at this age. It's okay. The real concern is the 2-point shooting. He's only 10 for 28 on twos all season. So he's only made 10 shots inside the arc. And him driving a closeout is a roller coaster. It could be a charge. It could be an air ball. And then sometimes he has like really nice finishes. But you can tell he doesn't really know what he's going to do. He knows there's a blow by. He knows he needs to attack. And there's just like, we talk about KJ Simpson, like the game doesn't speed up for him. Mm-hmm. For Salon, when he's driving and attacking, he doesn't quite know what he's trying to do. And he's kind of making it up as he goes. And NBA players know that, and they've clocked onto that. You know, even though he's 6'10" and he's athletic and big, like he just looks so unsure of himself when attacking the rim.
And that's what one of the knocks on him on draft day too, right? Like he wasn't a finisher at the rim at all.
Yeah.
And you're like, all right. And then you see he's 6'8" with like crazy wingspan. Like, what's going on? You know, then you want to give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe that was just a scheme over there, but it's translated. The good and the bad came with them. It's showing off his rookie year. So as a rookie, I'm going to give him plenty of grace here to fix it and to improve these things. But it's a shame that a guy at his size isn't a factor down low at all.
Yeah, and those are skill-based things. Those are things you can practice, right? When you drive a closeout, what do you want to get to? Okay, how can you improve your footwork? You know, can you drive, stop, pump fake? Those are all things you can drill. What I think you struggle to do with like NBA players is get them to play with like increased effort, drive, and energy, and like intensity. And that is one thing you just don't have to worry about with Salon. And that's one of the things the team loved about him. And those things have translated, again, not like with huge steal and block numbers, but if you actually look at like the advanced metrics defensively, he's middle of the pack. And I feel the team does execute pretty well when he's out there defensively. And I think that's even continuing to get better, even with the language barrier, which will get easier. He definitely has flashes and moments. And for the youngest guy in a full contract in the whole league, a whole rookie contract, that's what you want to see. You want to see flashes. There's going to be inconsistencies, but you want to see games like the Knicks game where you see the vision really clearly of what this player can be. And then he has to go away and work hard to find that level of consistency so he can do that. But I've seen enough flashes that I do now see their vision.
Yeah, and hitting that pick is going to be so key to this future, because I meant to mention this earlier as a broad statement, but kind of piggybacking off of what I mentioned about this team not quitting. The fact is, the future is still very bright. Now, having this like second and third layer of guys that can contribute and keep games close is so reassuring, knowing that eventually everyone's going to come back healthy and that there's going to be real depth and real competition throughout the remainder of the roster. And so when it's time for this team to make a leap, and what I mean that is like to really go for it in the trade market or in free agency, they have pieces to leverage to bring in new talent, but also they may be closer to making a move and really going for it, like really going for a step up, where I wasn't sure they were there at the same stage of last year, where, you know, like guys like Donovan Mitchell or like whomever, like, oh, we should get Brandon Ingram. Like, that's not going to do anything because the roster's not good enough. Today's roster, I think, is approaching the level where you can go get a guy and enter that next tier in the Eastern Conference, and where it will be really, really meaningful. And so this run, these guys that are stepping up, I think is really encouraging in that respect as well.
Yeah, and that's what you want to see. Like, that's what they'll be wanting to see in the second, like 2-3 quarters of the season is to get a gauge on that. Like, even if you look at the draft right now, and sorry to be doing this in December, but if you look at the draft right now, there are Cooper Flagg, number 1, he's the prize. What's after that? Agor Demian, guard. Dylan Harper, guard. VJK Edgecombe, guard. Like, it is a long list of guards. You got like Maluak, who's the big center at Duke. It's a very guard heavy class once you get past Cooper Flagg. And I don't know if I was like a top 5 projected guard, Charlotte is probably not where I want to go, because it's like, what's my role there with Brandon Miller and LaMelo Ball in the backcourt? And so there are ways that you
Stephon Castle did, right?
Yeah. There are ways that you can like leverage that. If you get the second overall pick and you can have like a Dylan Harper, Agor Demian is like your 2 guys, you might say, right, we'll put that on the market because we're not in the market for a guard. We like LaMelo Ball, we like Brandon Miller, but we want to get, you know, someone of interest, right? Like that there's ways you can go about that. So that's why it's also important in that place as well. Ace Bailey's the guy who's not a guard. He's like a wing power forward. But again, like even been comped to Brandon Miller is like a shooter, doesn't defend at super high level, not a creator, like long, slow kind of guard, like wing. There's a lot of crossover with Brandon Miller, which you can say is great, but also could be a concern for like just duplicative skill set. So that's also worth keeping in mind as well.
All right. We'll get your boy Micic out the way.
Let's do Micic. Look, in preseason, at the start of the season, he looked like one of the worst NBA basketball players I've ever seen step on the court. He's improved in the last couple of games. He's played 30 plus minutes twice in a row. He's had much better control of the offense. 13 assists to 5 turnovers, which is, he was turning over the ball pretty much whenever he touched it earlier in the season.
Yep.
There's definitely been a little bit of late game stat padding, I agree, but he's definitely got, I think I said at one point on this podcast, like, it can't be this bad the whole time. Like, we saw it last year. He was 13 points, 7 assists, 3 rebounds, 46% from the field, 31% from 3. That was last year. He can't be that bad. And I do just wonder if he's one of those guys, like he's never come off the bench in his life before being in the NBA. Mm-hmm. And he just needs to feel the pace of the game and to be into it, to feel comfortable, because he has looked more comfortable with the more minutes he's got. I don't think it's been great by any means, but it's been like okay, which is a big upgrade to where it was earlier in the year.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. We saw last year as a starter, that version of Micic versus this version of Micic up until the last couple of games, completely different dude.
Yeah.
And when you're like, all right, this guy has to start to get the most out of him, it's like, should he be starting? Like, if he's your starter, then that's probably a problem as well. So you're in this weird, like, maybe he shouldn't be in the NBA at all. If that's what it takes to get the most out of him, is to play him more when the results are really like, eh. But the fact that he has persevered through the benching, the relegation to the second row as well. Like the injured guys who are still in the first row, Micic just in the back, not even sniffing the court. Like that's having to look past Mark Williams to see the floor. Like Micic to go from that to a guy who's been starting and playing moderately well, I want to give him credit for that. And I hope it continues. And then when everyone does get back healthy, maybe he can roll that momentum as into him being a quality bench role player guy. Because that's his real value, right? That's what Denver was flirting with in the offseason. Yeah. So Micic.
I don't think any of that's true, by the way. I think that's pure speculation. Because they played in the same Olympic team, the basketball media just created this narrative that Denver wanted Micic. I don't buy it 1 second. I don't think it makes any sense.
Wanted it though?
Maybe, but like freaking how many NBA players would love to play in the Lakers and live in California? Yeah. How many NBA players would like to play with LeBron James? Like you could say that about anyone. Like you know, and when Serbia media asked Micic, would you like to play with Jokic? What's he supposed to say? No. like he's like, you know, coming back as like a celebrated hero. He's gonna get asked about it. He's gonna humor them, right? It's just for me, it was a complete non-story that like people started getting angry at me. Just like he doesn't even want to be in Charlotte. It's like, dude, just you have to understand like the position he's being put in by the media. Like, what do you want him to say?
You got to say, listen, Jokic talks about Hornets racing too much. I get tired of it. I love Charlotte. I love Bojangles. I want to stay here forever. That's what you're supposed to say. No. Micic. So what? You got the point guard rotation, the point guard depth or depth chart, LaMelo, Micic, KJ Simpson. It's not bad if this form continues.
Yeah. Like I said, if he can try and keep some of this up, that'd be positive. Getting this stretch here where I think he can really feel engaged, the team's going to be really good for him. He still has some of the worst misses like you see in NBA games. I mean, like if his misses were just like ordinary misses, it wouldn't look as bad as it looks. But they are like hitting the side of the backboard, barely grazing the net on air balls. It is quite something. But if he can up his trade value and the Hornets can get something for him, because I think with Trey Mann's emergence, because he was even playing some point guard before he got hurt, between Trey Mann's emergence, between what might be available in this draft class, between KJ Simpson, there is a team option for next year on Micic's contract. Like that is just looking more and more unlikely. So like I say, if they can move him on and get anything of positive value, I think that would, the way he's played this year, that would be positive. And maybe he can do that here if people believe, that if he gets some extra minutes after a good 2-week stretch. So interested to see how it plays out. And I'm happy for him, right? Like he's been visibly frustrated when he's been this bad this year. You can see it on him when he does like some of these terrible turnovers. I'm happy that this is such a mental game. Like we never talk about the mental side, but it's clear that he'd lost the joy. He lost his confidence. And I hope he's able to refine that because he's undoubtedly a better player when he has it. Yeah.
And to your point, if he gets into this rhythm as a bench guy, that's what teams are going to be thirsting over.
Yeah.
And then
this team would be thirsting over. This team needs it. Like if he can do it.
Yeah, true. I think the struggles of the past will be quickly forgotten once he's showing off what he can do as a rotation guy.
All right. Well, that brings the end of the show. Covered a lot of ground today. Next time we speak, I'm pretty confident we'll have seen Mark Williams play basketball. That is probably going to be something we talk about on how he looks. Just typical that both Nick Richards and Mark Williams come back just as soon as LaMelo Ball gets hurt. But I think LaMelo. I'm just going to say it right now. I didn't think we see LaMelo again in 2024. I'm just going to say it.
What? Expand. Why is that? Why is that?
Well, he's out for 2 weeks.
Uh-huh.
Okay. That's going to take us to what, like middle December? That's when he's going to be reevaluated in 2 weeks.
Right.
I think they're going to be super cautious. I don't think Melo is necessarily a super quick healer that we've seen. Calf muscle injuries can be very, very risky. It's not just like it's healed, let's go. It's a lot of you have to test it. So I would be surprised if it was like, if he's reevaluated in 2, I would say even if he was given the green light to resume activity, it would be at least another week from that point. Like if you think about when Nick Richards and Mark Williams were cleared for activity, and then them actually the lead of them making their debut to come back was like 7 to 10 days at least, I want to say. So you start adding all that up, then it's like Christmas, New Year period. Like I could just see them saying, and LaMelo maybe saying like, let's be cautious with this and let's come back in January. Love to be wrong, but it's just a gut feeling I have.
This is a topic for another day. We don't have to get into this now. But is it a caution or tanking? Just talk about it. We'll talk about that later, another time.
Another time. There'll be plenty of time for that later in the year. Sam, thanks for joining me this week. Make sure you go check out Hornets on SI. Make sure you go check out Sam Dracula's YouTube channel. And yeah, hope you enjoyed the pod.